about it.
That was real good. That was money, first of all.
Let's do another.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Real Review 3000. I am Chris Knight, and we are starting a new segment today. We're calling it Movie Talk with Chris and Stig. And today, again, I have Stig Kenobi with me, and we're going to continue from where we were at with Blade Runner on the Gospel According to Chris, but we're just going to continue this in a different light and with a new segment here on the channel. So, Stig, how you doing?
Doing quite well, mister.
Okay. That was my dad's name, by the way.
Mister?
Yes.
Oh.
Mister.
Hmm. I had a different name for my dad.
Oh.
Yeah, his name was Kai.
Oh, let's see.
Well, actually.
Oh.
He's still around.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, though.
Well,
always a pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. So today, if people aren't paying attention with all the stuff above us, today we're talking Robocop and a bunch of different things about this movie. Actually, I think kind of an underrated movie. A lot of people just see it as an action flick, and there's some actual interesting things in this movie that kind of get lost in the gunfire, the legs and arms and hands being blown off and things like that. But this movie is actually kind of deep in many different ways, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's like kind of like a religious, philosophical movie in the wrappings of an ultra-violent action movie,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say.
Yeah, I think that there's some interesting subplots there, like that are never discussed directly in the movie, but you can pick up on as you watch it. Let's start here really quick with some interesting facts about this movie. One is that basically the guy who created it because he hated his job. So Ed Neumeyer was a story editor at Universal Pictures, and he began to toy with this idea about a robot police officer. Basically, him and I think Michael Miner had a similar idea. They started the idea with either Super Cop or Robocop, the future of law enforcement. But they thought it was a ludicrous idea, but they did it because they hated their jobs. They were so mind-numbingly bored that they started toying with this idea, and from there we got this movie. Kind of an interesting thing. Also, Judge Dredd was a major influence on this movie, so this is kind of a twist on that. So way before the movies of Judge Dredd, either one, the one with Sylvester Stallone, the newer one, this movie came out, and it was a twist on Judge Dredd. So those are two interesting facts about that. What else what interesting facts do you know about this movie?
Well, it's also a twist on the Frankenstein story, where which is based on an old bit of Jewish folklore about the story of the Golem, which is a creature created by there's a lot of different stories about it, but usually it's like a magician or something that creates a creature out of clay, and it has it do its bidding. Interestingly enough, in order to activate the creature, they have to put the Hebrew word for truth in the forehead of the creature. And given that Robocop is a cop, truth would probably be the same as law, right?
That's what you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a modern day magician would be a scientist.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of allegories there for sure. And same as with Frankenstein, the creature or the monster um, ends up being the most human of the characters in the end, and it challenges his the authority really.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. Also, I found out that Peter Weller, the main actor in this movie, actually had to seek out a mime coach to become more physically expressive in his face. When he wasn't able to, when he was doing things, because so much of his face was, covered during most of the movie, that they wanted his mouth to really express the feelings and things. So he actually sought out a mime coach for that. That's kind of something I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and they also had to have an actor with a pronounced jaw,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only thing you see of him really, for the most of the movie. And they also needed a skinny, wiry actor, because otherwise the suit would be way too big if you had like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or something in there.
Mm-hmm.
The original choice for Robocop was actually Rutger Hauer, who had worked with Verhoeven, the director, in a movie called Flesh and Blood, and I think another movie as well. But they had a falling out, so they went with Weller. He was also a marathon runner, so he was in superb shape and very skinny.
Yeah, I know that Weller said that he couldn't move in the suit very well. So that, not that that's surprising, because you can tell that suit was probably very constricting. But
yeah, probably extremely heavy too.
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it was probably made of some sort of plastics and stuff, but even then, those suits are much heavier than they look. So I would assume some of the robotic movements were probably very true to life.
Yeah, and picture running down the stairs in that one scene with that suit, and you have to do it like 50 or 100 times to get it right. You'd get tired.
Yeah, and I saw also that they said that the heat on the set was excruciating. It was actually filmed in Detroit. It was set in Detroit, but it was primarily shot in Dallas. That's what it was, and they said that the heat of it was just about 100 degrees a day, and so in that suit he would lose some. I think I read somewhere it was like 8 pounds a day he was losing weight.
Wow.
Yeah, because of how hot and how much sweat he was actually getting. So, if you want to lose weight, find a Robocop outfit, go to Dallas, 100 degrees, and run around like you're acting all day. And
I'm kind of upset now that nobody cast me as Robocop. I wouldn't have been as big.
Well, we can all hope. So, anyways,
Yeah.
Let's start with let's just kind of go through the movie as it's set. We find out very early on that that law enforcement has been basically subcontracted out to a company, a corporation, and right there is an interesting thought. Just the sheer fact of why would a company take on a subcontract of police officers? Because police officers and security officers are two completely different things. We know companies have security officers, and we know they subcontract that out. That's not unheard of. But the thought of police officers being subcontracted out is actually a very dangerous idea, if you ask me. And so that sets the movie off right away in a very interesting direction.
Yeah, it's like the country has sold its sense of justice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
to a company that's, well, it's called Omni Consumer Products. I mean, you can't get more soulless than that.
Exactly.
So they basically sold themselves to the devil, I suppose.
Well, anytime you sell anything to a company, you know the company's going to exploit it, and that they won't, a company won't buy something or won't invest in something unless they see something in it for them. So right there's something they want out of it, and you find out very early on that this Century City, or I'm trying to remember the name of the city that they're building in
Delta City.
That's it, Delta City, in Old Detroit. They call it Old Detroit, so you get a very quick sense that there's a newer Detroit, or a place where everybody moved to get away from this dirty, rundown city, which is, at the time this movie was made, was kind of edgy, because Detroit was going through, and still is in a sense going through, these problems. Detroit has always had this industrial complex there, but they've had problems in the 80s with GM, restructuring and doing a lot of that stuff. So this kind of hit a very true note with where the country was at the time, is that this trying to rebuild Detroit. But they called it a different name.
Yeah, and it's a city known for making cars, isn't it?
Yes, it's the United States car mecca. Chevy, Ford, and Chrysler, the big three as we call them here in the United States. So they're all headquartered there.
Yeah, so it's actually very well placed, given that the city is known for creating machinery.
Yes.
And there's steel everywhere, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a Robocop.
Yeah, and so you get this idea really early on that this company is more in this for their city. They want this city built, and they see having the cops under their wing as a way to kind of muscle their way in here and fix the problems however they see fit. Because you find out, again, early on, that there's this idea of this robotic officer of some sort that will basically go into Old Detroit and clean up everything, and then they'll just move right in, kick anybody else out, the vagrants, the homeless, all that. They'll kick everybody else out, and then they'll move in all their workers and all their equipment and start building. And you hear that they're up against it. It's like, I think they said 8 months, something like that they talk about. They say, hey, we've got 8 months before we break ground. So they obviously are in this for nefarious purposes. Now, the old man that's in charge of Omnicorp, I don't think he's in it for necessarily bad reasons. He sees this as Delta City being built to rekindle industrial growth, to bring back civility to the Detroit area. But again, in all facets of a company, you have those who see a good thing to do, and then of course the person who he basically expects to make this happen, his number two, happens to be a little less on the up and up about what he's wanting.
Yeah, because when you see the first, well, Robocop, I guess, that he introduces,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically a turret on legs, and no way is that a police officer in any way. That's more like a tank.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see it right there, and I guess the old man in charge of the company is probably how do I put this? His company is infected with the same evil he's trying to fight, I suppose.
Yeah. It's a microcosm that and the age of the gentleman, you would assume, lends to the idea that he probably remembers when things in Detroit were better. And so he's trying to recapture that. Now, Dick, I think it's Dick Jones, is it? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dick Jones, or Richard Jones, is the number two. And he obviously has, like I said, nefarious purposes in this. But so we see fairly early on, they show the police station and how bad it is in I think it's the East Zone. Is it? No, it's South. Yeah, East Zone, if I remember right. And Murphy comes in, and he's from I think the South, and they say, "Oh, really nice, well, you'll have to work here." And they show you really early on how bad this one section of old Detroit is. And, we're cutting back and forth, and you cut back to the fact that this tank is the answer Dick Jones has to fix the problems, and it ends up killing one of their guys because it's malfunctioning.
Yeah, it doesn't just kill him.
Yeah, I mean,
It shoots him into a puddle.
Yeah, let's just put this out there. For anybody who hasn't seen this movie, we will have spoilers and stuff first off, but for anybody who hasn't seen the original RoboCop, I never watched the second one. I had no want to see not the second one, but the new remake of RoboCop. I never wanted to see that one. But in this, it's a very violent movie. I mean, I remember when I first saw this that there weren't very many movies that really were this violent. And it's blatantly violent too.
Yeah, it's deliberately so.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably it has one of the most brutal murders I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh, absolutely.
What happens to Murphy a few hours after he arrives on the job is, yeah, not nice.
So, I can't even remember the name of the tank thing. It's got HAL or not HAL or whatever. It's like an abbreviation. And he blows this guy away. He falls on the model of Delta City, which I think is very symbolic right there. I mean, I think that's one of the first symbolic sides of things. Here's this project that Dick Jones has been working on, this tank, this officer, whatever you want to call him, and it malfunctions. It shoots this guy repeatedly. The guy gets blown back onto the Delta City model, and what happens to it? It gets destroyed.
Yeah, and it keeps shooting until the guns are empty as well.
Yeah. So right there's one of the first symbolic things in this movie that probably gets washed over. The Dick Jones and his monster kills this guy and in essence destroys Delta City.
Yeah, and none of his co-workers try to help him. They all push him away.
Yeah, and that shows you the spineless people they are.
Yeah.
But I think that the fact that the monster kills a guy and the guy destroys the model of Delta City is symbolic of what you're going to see in the rest of this movie is Dick Jones doesn't care about Delta City. Dick Jones cares about him, and everything he's going to do from this point on is going to destroy Delta City's chances. And I think that's
also gonna make the company get bloody.
Mm-hmm. So this happens, and we cut back to Murphy and
Lewis.
Thank you, Lewis.
Yeah. Also a strong female character.
Yes.
That people tend to pretend doesn't exist.
Well, before go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, she's a kick-ass character, and Nancy Allen does a terrific job.
Yeah, she does. When they first meet, he's in the main part of the precinct where they book people and stuff, and he comes out, and this guy's fighting like 3 cops, and she's right there. She pulls off her helmet and just round kicks the guy and kicks his ass right there. The first scene we get to meet her in is this woman. I mean, without words being said, this woman is not going to take crap from anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's a very good point, is that this is a strong female character before we had this, we got to put a strong female character in this movie. They did it. And how do they do it? They do it by writing. You don't even have to say she's a strong female character. She is, because you see it right from the get-go.
And she's arguably a better police officer than Murphy is too.
Well, I think it says that she's been in this precinct for a while. She knows the crap that goes on there. And here's this guy that came from a very easy, laid-back police place that probably had to deal with white-collar crime more than anything. But you see this, they meet, they go out to do their patrol, and right away, like you said, you find out that they're gonna go and they got this robbery or something happened, and they start chasing this group in a box van, and they basically get knocked around a little bit, and then they had to follow these guys. And I believe it's the same factory area that is at the end of the movie. If not, it just looks very much like it.
Yeah, I think it is.
And so right there, you get an idea that the beginning of the movie is the end. It's the end and the beginning. It's like, I think this kind of might go down to your suggestion that there's some biblical things going on here. I am the beginning, I am the end, that type of thing. That there's a very unique bookmark, and the bookmarks or the bookends are very much the same thing. So
yeah, and also when they when they kill Murphy, it's an execution.
Mm-hmm.
But when Clarence Boddicker, the main thug, shoots Murphy's hand off, it's mirroring the nails driven through Jesus's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that Paul Verhoeven, the director, encouraged the actor and his thugs to laugh like jackals,
mm-hmm.
which was alluding to the people who mocked Christ during the crucifixion.
Well, they do that all through the movie, and that's a very good point. And yes, these people are definitely soulless and deprived, and so yes. And if I remember right, where he gets shot in his legs and stuff like that is very similar to that. So they go to the industrial complex, and like you said, Murphy gets caught, and they bring him down, and you get the feeling right away that this isn't going to go well. you know something's going to happen, but just the fact, it's like they make an example out of him. You know that this guy, Clarence Boddicker, has killed several cops, and that his gang has done the same. And you've heard about it in the movie already, that the one guy got killed, but he lived, obviously, and then he just died. But you never hear that it's like horribly violent. You assume it's in gunfire being exchanged, things like that. That's how I kind of took it, is that these cops are dying because of gunfire and exchange of gunfire, not point blank one-on-one contact with Clarence Boddicker. So Murphy kind of gets the unfortunate distinction of being the one-on-one contact with Clarence Boddicker, and Clarence Boddicker just comes out and says, "Oh, you might have heard about me. You might think I'm a bad guy." The problem is I don't like cops. And he proceeds to literally hold the guy's arm down and blow his hand off. And he's doing this, if I remember right, with a shotgun.
Yeah.
And so there's just massive blood, massive splattering. And it's very, like you said, the biblical connotations of this is very obvious because it's bloody, and you know that this wouldn't have been it wasn't something that was supposed to be easy to watch. They really made this hard to watch.
Yeah, they actually hint a little at it to begin with when you hear about an officer named Fredericks who has passed away, and there's some bits about it on the news early on in the movie, but then you actually see what happens to a cop.
And that's what I'm
It,
saying is I don't think that they tell you in the movie enough up front of how bad these cops are actually dying.
yeah, they just tone it down almost, and then they hit you with it like a sledgehammer.
Hmm.
And Kurtwood Smith really shines in this movie as Boddicker.
Oh yeah,
Uh, one of the best movie villains, I think, in the 80s, for sure.
definitely. And he embodies everything about it. He's brash. He's cocky. He's just ruthless. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that sets again this scene with Murphy at the beginning where they're shooting him numerous times. I think shows exactly how ruthless he is, and that's very important because you have to know that this guy is dangerous, and that
Yeah,
from this
he's a
point on,
psychopath.
yeah, from this point on, you know if he's not he has no compassion. That's the key here is that you see up front he has no compassion. He could have shot the guy's hand off and walked away, but he doesn't do that.
Yeah, and nobody in the movie likes him.
No.
And I noticed a little thing near the end when one of his henchmen shows up in a car, a really nice car, and Boddicker says he has a car like that as well. And then he just shoots the other guy's car and
Hmm.
blows it up because he can't stand that someone else has a
Stolen
good
the
a
same
car.
car.
Yeah, as good a car as he has.
Well, and you know that they both stole it. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if I remember right, the scene. Oh, go ahead.
He is completely petty, really.
Yes,
Which is he's a sociopath and is clearly a narcissist.
yes. I think if I remember right, he shoots his hand off, and then I think shoots him a couple more times, but then he literally just says to his guys, "Yeah, go ahead, finish it off," and he lets them, and they're all sitting there shooting him numerous amounts of times as Lewis is watching from a distance, and she knows she can't do anything about it, and I think that shows. Again, it's good to show that even if a person's a strong character, that they're not just I don't want to say superhuman, but that they have flaws. She she wants to save him, but she knows better. She doesn't
Yeah,
want this to happen, but she knows if she intervenes, she's going to get the same thing. So it's that conflict in her that she obviously lets the guy die, but
she's probably if she gets caught the same way, she's in for worse because she's a woman.
yeah,
And I have a suspicion that they would do worse things to a woman than
oh, most
what
definitely.
they did to Murphy.
Yeah. Um. So, we do the we do the whole scene with Murphy, and of course, you know, you assume the guy's dead first off, but then the next scene is them putting him on a stretcher and taking him in and trying to work on him, and they have a heartbeat when he gets there. But he's also the final act is he gets shot in the temple, so that kind of does it right there. But he does die. And the next thing is that you find out that you've already heard them talk about this new program that they're trying to implement now at Omnicorp, and it's very easily the way that the movie's set up. You know that this is the guy. This is going to be the guy they're going to take. But then you find out the kind of the underhanded thing that Omnicorp has done by taking over the police departments. When they come up and they're doing the whole thing where you see, it's him looking, and it's a computer running his brain now, but he's looking at these scientists and stuff, and they're talking about taking off his arm. They say, well, he signed a contract, and basically that gives us every right to do whatever we want with him. So Omnicorp already has in this contract with the police, anybody who's a police officer, they can do whatever they want with anybody they want, with anything that they want, at any time that they want, is what you find out.
Yeah.
And what do you
I
think?
also know. I also noticed a little kind of off topic thing.
Go ahead.
But it has an 80s trope in it where the chief of police is always an angry black man.
You're right. That's
Yeah.
Well, and let's go a little further off topic really quick. That's probably why in the last action hero, it's and it is true. I think
It is a thing.
I think the only one that actually may have bucked that trend was Lethal Weapon,
Yeah.
where it was an angry white man, but still angry is always the case. But
Yeah. And it's awesome as
It
well.
is.
I love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we find out that Murphy is basically whatever. He's spare parts. Even from the beginning, a police officer is bought and paid for by Omnicorp. And they can do whatever they want. Sure. I mean, and I kind of think that the, like they said, we're ready to go into production phase or test phasing. We're just waiting for the poor schmuck to volunteer.
Yeah, and then you can see Miguel Ferrer's character, Morton, show off the complete soullessness of corporate America at that point, and probably now as well.
Mm-hmm.
They literally walk over each other's corpses to just get a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays it so well. He was such an underrated actor. He passed away in 2017, I believe.
Yes. So we get to the point where they're basically making Robocop, and you hear about them. No, I don't want any of his body. Oh, we saved his left arm. Oh, no, I thought we were doing this completely autonomously or whatever they say. And you get the ins and outs, where you see them working on him and they're programming him and all that. And the first reveal of Robocop is probably, I think it's probably one of the harder things of the movie, because as short of a time as you get to spend with Murphy to know who Murphy is, you already know he has a son, because they establish that fairly early on when he's with Lewis and he's playing with his gun. He's like, spinning it around, and she says, "Oh, it's kind of cool." And he said, "Oh yeah, my son watches this show, and the guy on the show doesn't, and I guess he thinks all good cops should be able to do it." And so you learn really early on certain key factors. So in a very short amount of time, you become attached to Murphy's character. And then when they kill him the way they do, you become even more attached to him, because now you feel suffering for him. So the first scene with him as Robocop is kind of jarring, because now you see this man who has lost all existence of humanity, but it's still him.
Yeah, you get a hint of it when you see RoboCop do the same move with the gun. So it's like, yeah, there's still some Murphy left in him, right?
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a very strong, it's a strong statement to make.
Yeah.
Because and I think it even pulls you in more to liking the character, because now you want this character still to succeed, but you're not sure yet how that's going to happen.
Yeah, and it also adds to Lewis's character, because she seems to know it before Murphy,
Mm-hmm.
which means she is very perceptive, because that was just a little detail and she noticed it right away.
Yeah, the first time he walks by her in the hallway, which is a few scenes after when he first comes out as RoboCop. But he's walking by her after he's had this lack of a better word, a nightmare. And she notices it right away. She just sees it in the jaw, and I think she also sees him in the range with the spinning of the gun, and she knows that this has got to be him.
Yeah. My only gripe with this movie is actually the gun.
Did you know that? Oh, go ahead.
It's not that big, so where the hell does all the ammo go?
Yeah, it's there. The gun actually needed FBI approval. It was a modified 9mm Beretta, and I'm trying to think here. Oh, it had to be approved by the FBI. The actor who handled weapons as a teenager was able to twirl handguns. He said it was like trying to twirl half of a baseball bat. But Peter Weller basically said that the modified weapon had to actually be approved by the FBI before they would allow it on states, because it was originally used by the FBI as their main sidearm. So that's a little throw in there for you. But
I actually I had a toy gun like that. I had the Robocop gun when I was a kid. That gave me street cred. Used to play with plastic guns with my friends when I grew up.
Yeah, whatever happened to doing that? Now they're all orange and.
Yeah, and kids play with guns on their PlayStation now, don't they? I'm sure we would have done the same if we had Call of Duty multiplayer back in the day.
If we had the games they had today, I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to think the games that they had back then were awesome. I mean, I remember like the first time I saw Donkey Kong at a diner. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so awesome!"
Yeah, I had a Commodore 64 when I was a kid, and I actually have the RoboCop game for it.
Oh,
yeah.
I might have had the RoboCop game for like Nintendo or something. I had Commodore, I had ColecoVision, I had a few things, so, but I don't remember ever having that game for that. So, when we first see RoboCop, do you think that there's any symbolization behind what RoboCop is?
Well, for the middle part of the movie, nightmares aside, Murphy is pretty much dead, because at the end of the movie he calls himself Murphy, not RoboCop. But that, I think, is the religious allegory as well, because it's resurrected after 3 days. I think he's RoboCop for 3 days before the ending. So Jesus came back after 3 days, didn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, and he also walks on water right before. So there's a lot of that.
That symbolization.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of it.
And you bring it up. Mary Magdalene is a important part in the Bible with the resurrection and stuff. And would not necessarily exactly, but would you say that's part of the reason why Lewis is there? Is a kind of a not Mary?
She's a catalyst, isn't she?
Yeah, she's the one who helps Murphy realize it. In fact, she almost immediately wants him to know it's him, and she doesn't ever. I mean, the first thing she says to him is Murphy, it's Lewis. She wants him to know who he is, who he was.
Didn't Mary Magdalene pray for his return after he died, though?
Yes,
in the Bible.
She actually stayed. I think she may have been. I will check this because I don't want anybody who is a major person on religion to question this. So, who first saw Jesus after resurrection? Yeah, that's what I thought. She was the first person to see Jesus after the resurrection. So that's kind of what I think that they're trying to do here is that she's the first person who actually recognizes him and says to him, "This is who you are."
Yeah.
To help him basically in his journey back to being Murphy. And that is a very important thing, because she could have just said, "Okay, Murphy's dead. This isn't even him. It's just they used him to make this." And she could have just
nice catch, by the way.
Yeah, and so I kind of wonder about that.
It probably is, because it's stuffed with biblical stuff, especially concerning Jesus. So, like you said, Maria Magdalene was a vital character in that story in many ways. So, you're probably spot on.
So he goes out and does exactly what he's supposed to do. He just drives right through crime. No problems. The first guy he comes up against, I think, is the guy in the convenience store.
Yeah.
And then, he knocks him into a thing. I always find that funny. Here's this guy who's supposed to be a cop, and he knocks him into this wall and knocks him out, obviously, and then walks away. Why didn't he take him in? It's like, I find that first scene kind of funny.
Yeah. Same thing with the second scene. It doesn't.
Yeah, he shoots the one guy in a very interesting manner through the woman's skirt.
Yeah.
And so she comes, and again, I think it's important. This part is where she runs up to him and hugs him and tries to, for lack of a better word, caress him, not sexually. Just, oh, thank you. She's really emotionally, shaken. So she's just thanking him. And here's the first thing he says is, "Ma'am, you should probably get to a rape crisis center." And he's very cold and callous. It's like there's no soul there. And so, again, you've met this guy who obviously is a really good guy, and now you see that they've taken all existence of him away, or at least so you think. He's very cold.
Yeah, and the first three situations he's in, the first one being the robbery, he knocks the guy out. The second situation, he castrates the guy basically, and the third one, he kills the guy. So he keeps getting colder and worse, I guess, more harsh.
Yeah.
With each case, which I'm pretty sure is deliberate as well.
Yeah, and so I think the third scene is where he meets the gang member, right?
No, it's the guy with the hostages.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, at the city hall, and he's about ready to kill the mayor, and he pulls him through the wall and throws him out the window. Again, not what you would assume that they would have signed up a cop to do, but obviously I think that gives the idea that, again, Omnicorp isn't necessarily after to protect and serve. They're just after whatever way, a military way of cleaning up old Detroit.
Yeah.
They don't really care the body count.
Yeah, they want a thug.
Yes. And so that you see that fairly early on. Then the fourth, I guess, is the gang member.
Yeah, that's when he gets his first flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets set on fire, so I'm guessing, purgatory.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's him emerging from the fire.
Yeah, that could also be.
The trials, as you would call them. I mean, again, I think this mixes in some mythologies and stuff like that. A lot of Greek, Roman, Norse mythology do speak about the trials of fire and other things before you are actually sent to your final destination after your death. But it's funny that the first person who actually 100% recognizes him is this gang guy. He's like, "We killed you. You're dead." And that's what sparks the beginning of the flashbacks and stuff for Murphy.
Yeah. Sets things in motion for him to get resurrected, I suppose.
And so he doesn't kill this guy. He shoots his bike, and the guy falls and stuff, and he tells him he's under arrest. So this is the first guy that actually gets taken in that we know about.
It's also the first bit of truth he learns about himself. You're dead.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny again that it's coming from this gang guy. So maybe there's the fact that perhaps in this movie that they're trying to, in a symbolic way, say that even the criminals are more honest than the people who are supposed to be protecting and serving.
Yeah. I mean, Clarence Boddicker is dead honest all through the movie.
Yeah, he doesn't lie. He's like, I don't like cops, and he kills the guy. I mean, he's straightforward. You know what's going to happen. This happens. There's the scene also here that you find out about Dick Jones and Morton. They talk in the bathroom. Morton's kind of jawing about Dick and says, "Oh, it's just a facade. He's not really that tough." Blah 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 blah. They have this confrontation in the bathroom where Dick says, "The difference between me and you is that when I made fun of the old man, there was still respect there, and you don't have respect for me." And he basically all but tells the guy, "You're done. You're going to be dead."
Yeah, and it happens the very same evening.
Yes, and so you hear him talk about, oh, these girls are coming over, and so he sends Boddicker after Morton. And what's funny here is that this teaches you that Boddicker, if he's not in it, he's not that cruel. He just he comes in, shoots the guy twice in each leg, once in each leg, and puts this tape in, and then puts the grenade down on the table. But you can tell he's not really invested in what happens to this guy. He doesn't really care. He's there on duty. He's there because he was sent there. But if it was for any other reason, he wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and he also puts on the tape where Dick Jones gets to gloat at Morton as he's dying.
Yeah,
and which is a very sociopathic thing. But also, I noticed Clarence doesn't care about witnesses because he doesn't harm the two women.
No, he says get out.
No, he says bitches leave.
Yeah.
Which
I said it much nicer, but
yeah,
he does. He says, bitches leave, and they're like, bye, Bob. Are you gonna call me? I love that line. She's leaving. I don't think I would have loved it if Boddicker would have said, I don't think he's gonna call you.
Yeah, or Morton go, yeah, I'll try.
Yeah. But the just that line, I wonder if that was ad-libbed or something. I don't know. I just found that funny.
It was funny.
But no, he's just Boddicker in that scene is not really violent. He just incapacitates the guy, puts tape in, and puts the grenade down. And it's not I guess it's probably Jones probably called him up and said, "Hey, I want him dead." And he's like, "Okay, I guess I'll do it." Because the difference in callousness of the scene with Murphy when they're killing Murphy, he's into it. This is what he wants to do to this guy. In that scene, it's nonchalant. It's just like, boom, boom, shoot him in the leg. Okay, you're incapacitated. I don't have to worry about you. Put the tape in, put the grenade down, walk out. I don't care.
Also, given that he clearly likes it when he kills Murphy, also adds to the fact that he's dead honest because he just says, "I hate cops."
Yeah.
So he actually means it.
Yeah.
It's not just something he says to be a badass or anything.
But like I said, he isn't into killing Bob Morton. He just does it because he was told to.
Yeah.
So there's obviously some bit of decision there. He does it because he's being paid and because he's a goon for Dick Jones. but when he wants to kill somebody, he enjoys it. In this case, it's just a job to him. So there's definitely the two different versions of Boddicker. There's the, I just got paid to do it. Sorry, dude, you're going to die because, well, I'm told to. And then, nope, I'm going to kill this person.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just an interesting two sides of the guy. Because other than the Murphy scene, the guy just is a typical goon. He's a henchman. The scene when he comes back in after Murphy and the giant tank fight for just a few seconds around Bob Jones, or not Bob Jones, but Dick Jones. When he comes in there, he just kind of he's a henchman, except for the scenes where he's actually trying to kill Murphy or Robocop. That you can see a complete utter hatred, and that how bad and how psychopathic he is. The rest of the movie, he's fairly normal. Scene,
except for being an utter asshole, really.
Oh yeah, but I mean, he's a bad guy, so of course I expect the asshole in the part. Yeah. But what I mean is the scene that separates him as one of the better villains of these movies, and I'm not just going to say the 80s, I'm going to say of action movies and of villainy, the thing that separates him is that Murphy scene. Because there are very few movies that show the villain being so cold and so callous to not even care. I mean, in a lot of movies, that scene probably would have just been the guy got shot, would have shot him in the chest or in the head and left him for dead. No, this guy tears him apart.
Yeah. The character of Boddicker actually reminds me quite a lot of Lance Henriksen's character in Hard Target.
Yeah.
Same DNA there. Just doing their job for the most part until they get angry.
Yeah, or when they're invested in it.
Yeah.
When it's really their cause, when it's really what they want. That's when you see how evil they really are.
And it's a very similar performance.
It is.
Absolutely. I was also kind of surprised to see Ray Weiss as a thug for the main thug. Mm-hmm. Basically a secondary henchman. And Ray Weiss is actually a very, very good actor. I think he's a stage actor as well. So his... I don't know if you've seen Twin Peaks, but he blows that show out of the park with his performance.
Uh-huh. I've seen parts of Twin Peaks here and there.
Yeah, he's like a light version of Ian McKellen or actors like that. Mm-hmm. Never seems to get enough credit, but it's always tremendously good. And to see him as a common thug was very surprising and fun.
Yeah, and I think sometimes by doing that, I mean, I know actors talk about it all the time. They don't like to be typecasted. So sometimes they purposely take parts like this. And though this was, I think, fairly early on in his career, taking steps out of what you may normally be or what you would consider your comfort zone is important early in a career, because like I said, people don't like getting typecasted. And so I always like seeing that in movies where here's this character that you normally would see one way, and now they turn him around and now he's completely different, or she's completely different. It's always important, and it lends a kind of a good twist to movies. So
yeah, and I actually I laughed hard when the guy was melting. He trots around and you know is clearly in pain.
Oh
And
yeah.
then he walks right into Ray Wise's character, and that scream and the expression on Ray Wise's face always gets me though. That's probably the only point in the movie where I start laughing.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a very it's a very graphic scene.
Now the Ray Wise could get a job as a scream queen because of that.
But they yeah, just you brought up the toxic waste thing there, and that's
That scared the living daylights out of me when I was a kid.
it still bothers me because
It's eerie.
it is, and the fact that I think it's
And
the
it's so
fact.
well made. It
Yeah.
looks real.
I think one, there's that. Two, it's the fact that the guy lives afterwards. If he rolled out of the truck and was deformed like that but dead, okay, fine, that's typical. But no, this guy's like walking around, and it's like, ooh,
Yeah, and
wow.
it gets worse every time you see him until
Yeah.
they just hit him with a car and he just goes splat.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let's go back. We were at the Boddicker kills Morton, and
Yeah.
so Dick Jones is in charge, and RoboCop Murphy actually gets to Boddicker during the drug warehouse scene, which is one of the scenes, like I said, except for the beginning and the end, when you see the pure hatred he has for the cop or for Murphy, and even Lewis for that matter, the way he treats Lewis at the end. Aside from that, like the scene at the drug warehouse, he's a casual business guy almost in that. He's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you, you're going to do what I say because I got friends in high places and so on and so forth. It's RoboCop that comes in and completely tears that scene apart. And even then, he's looking at the RoboCop and going like, what's going on here? Because Boddicker seems to know too. He seems to think it because he's not really shooting him. He's trying to get away during that whole scene. And then I believe that's the scene where he catches up with Boddicker.
Yeah, it beats the heck out of him.
Throws him through. And so again, you get the sense of he's saying, you have a right to remain silent. He's programmed as a cop, but he obviously is allowed to go a lot farther than a cop would. So,
yeah, and Murphy is starting to surface a little bit.
yes, because there's he already has had the flashback, and he knows, and that's where he goes in and he uses his lovely middle finger to go through the files and find Boddicker's name. But he catches Boddicker, and so he brings Boddicker in, and Boddicker, of course, spills his guts and says, I work for Dick Jones. I work for Dick Jones. And that's when he goes after Dick Jones and finds out that he cannot arrest everybody. So again, nefarious purposes by Omnicorp.
Yeah, there's a program in him that keeps him from
Directive 4. And
arresting Omnicorp employees.
And you see this at the very beginning when they first bring him online, when he's asked his directives, and he's, it goes Directive 1, Directive 2, Directive 3, and then Directive 4, boop, 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 and it says like classified or whatever, and he can't tell the guy because it's classified or whatever, and he doesn't even know what it is, but you find out at this point what it is. He can't arrest senior officers of the company. So obviously this is put in protection of Dick Jones. Dick Jones knows what he's doing, and he purposely puts that in there to keep him from doing it. So, RoboCop again, kind of gets screwed up here. The tank comes in and shoots him a couple times, kind of beats him up. Then there's the scene where he's going down the stairs and the tank falls down and wails like a little boy, a little girl, and Murphy gets away, but now he can't go back because the next scene you see again is the cops are all there. The SWAT team is there now, the one that he helped at the city hall, and they start just pelting him with bullets constantly because they're told to kill him or destroy him. And he gets away because he keeps rolling down the garage.
That's also a Frankenstein moment when the villagers turn on the monster who hasn't really done anything wrong. Well, except for throwing a kid into the lake, but
yeah, well, that
was an accident.
Yeah, they, it's very much the villagers coming to find the monster, and he gets away again. Lewis finds him, but at this point he's beat up, he's broken a bit, and he cannot go back. This is a basically what you would call the climax of the movie, where it's either what you do from this point on is going to determine the end point. So
yeah, actually, Lewis fixes him, right?
Well, and she goes to so the subplots that we've left out here is that the cops by this point are threatening to strike, and at that point when she takes him, the next day basically they strike and don't show up to work. So she goes to the police station. She finds she finds tools and guns, and she brings them to him. And he pretty much fixes himself. He goes and he ratchets his knee back to wherever he needs to, because it shows him with a wrench moving his leg. He gets a drill gun and takes his top off. And Lewis shows him with a mirror or a piece of metal what he looks like.
Yeah, which is absolutely symbolism. She shows him who he really is, and she also brings him food, and she helps him with the target. With the target thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Maria Magdalene clean Jesus after he's dead?
I believe she does clean his wounds. I'd have to go back and check.
But that would be a definite
so.
Little allegory right there.
Well, let's go look real quick here. Well, she washes his feet at one time. I know that. But I'll look at some other time. We'll stay on the topic here. He fixes his knee. She shows him who he is, and he says, I remember my wife and child, or he says he feels them, but he doesn't remember them. And he asks her about what happened, and she says, you were dead. So she moved on, and she, basically started a new life. So this moment is fairly hard. Again, if you like the character by this point in the movie, you feel for him, because he found out that he had no choice in the matter. They brought him back, and when they brought him back, he has nothing left anyways. So whatever he feels inside, whatever is left of who he was inside, still has nowhere to go. Nothing from that point on. He is starting from scratch. But he chooses, even after knowing that, to continue the life of Murphy. So he makes a very definite decision at this point on. He is Murphy. He says, "Call me Murphy." And the symbolism of, yes, she helps him target because his targeting is off. So he says, "I'm locked in." She moves it over, and they actually get it to where he's locked in again. It's a quick scene, but it's pretty good. But by this time, Dick Jones has handed Boddicker the tracking device, giving him some cool weapons. You get the scene where, Boddicker shows the weapons by blowing up the guy's car, and then they blow up a few buildings. and some other stuff. And then they say, let's go. We're going to go get him. See him driving down again in, I believe, the same industrial area that the part where Murphy got killed is at, which I think is symbolic that, the beginning is the end.
Yeah.
Wherever this happened, it's going to finish here. And so, I don't know. This movie is kind of, the ending is kind of anticlimactic. I would have thought that they would have, that it would have been a little, I don't know about more violent, but I would have thought that it would have been a little more intense than what it really is. Because it's not as intense as you would think.
No, it's just the bad guys just get picked off one by one.
And
it's like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Even Clarence is kind of sudden.
Yeah.
It's not like a huge fight or anything.
No, it isn't. So he picks off the first guy and the second guy while they're shooting these big rockets or missiles or whatever, the explosive shells, which you got to figure are really big. But, they try to shoot him. Obviously, they're the worst shots in the world because they were blowing up buildings and stuff. And now this time he's like 5 feet away from the explosion and he survives.
Yeah, and Lewis gets one of them as well.
Yeah, they are going. Robocop goes after the one guy in the box van, and basically, he ends up running into the toxic waste. And there's that lovely scene while Lewis is chasing after Boddicker in the car. And again, Boddicker drives through the guy that is infected with the toxic waste, which I think is really a gross scene too. That whole scene with the toxic waste, I can only imagine the first time somebody watched that in the theater, how that affected somebody. That had to have been like, whoa.
I was like 10 or something when I saw it.
Yeah.
So,
And like you, I was freaked. I was like, what?
Yeah, sometimes the the age limit on the movies are there for a very good reason.
Mm-hmm. So, we get to this, like I said, kind of anticlimactic. Boddicker shoots Lewis a few times. She's pretty torn up. The guy drops the metal onto Robocop, pinning him down, and then Boddicker comes and beats him a couple times, stabs him in the heart, or where you would assume the heart would be, stabs him, and then...
Do you think the stabbing thing is allegory for a spear?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. And they, they do that, and then... I'm trying to remember how he kills Boddicker again. He just
stabs him in the neck.
With, that's right. Yeah, with his lovely finger. Just
yeah.
And he just sits there and kind of bleeds out. Thank you, because I just rewatched this, and that totally, again, the ending is not really the way you would think, but
no.
So and then. Robocop says, Lewis, and she says, Murphy, and she says something about not being in the greatest shape, and I forget what he says. I think he says, I need a vacation or something like that.
Yeah, and that's the last shot you see of Lewis. You don't really know if he survives or not until the sequel.
Yeah, and so and then it ends. So it's just kind of an interesting ending to it.
Well, it doesn't end. He goes to take care of
that's
Dick.
True. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he goes to.
And I notice he defeats the tank robot with the same weapon Dick gave to Boddicker.
Mm-hmm.
So he's funny. Using. Yeah,
because he just shoots it, and then the next thing you see is the thing stumbling around and falling down with no top.
Yeah, which is their creation yet again turning on them.
Yeah. And then he goes into the board meeting, and they're all there, and he accuses Dick of it, shows the video, and then Dick takes the old man as a hostage, and then the man says, "Dick, you're fired," and Robocop says, "Thank you," and shoots Dick 4 times.
Yep. Yeah, 4 bursts.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed is the guy who's uh, second after Dick again just stands up and smiles like this
Oh.
gleeful grin because he knows, okay, now I'm, you know, going to get promoted.
Oh, he loves it. He loves
Yeah.
every last bit of it. So, yeah, and then he says, "Thank you," and then the guy says, "Nice work, officer. What's your name?" He turns around and says, "Murphy." And
Yeah.
so we know by this point that he has fully come to embrace who he was, and he
Yeah.
now considers himself that. So I do think that that's an important part. It brings back his humanity to a bit.
Yeah, he's returned to being Murphy as well. He's where he was at the beginning of the movie after having gone through hell, I suppose.
Yeah. So
So it's a resurrection.
yeah, and again, I think that I loved this movie. I mean, this movie was very well done. I don't think it gets the credit it deserves.
No, it seems to get treated as an action movie, but it's really not.
No.
It has a lot of action,
Yes.
but most action movies don't have messages like this one has,
No. And
or depth.
no, and I think a lot of the '80s movies, these action movies, they did a really good job of making sure that they added these little messages in them.
Yeah.
And so
And they were always entertaining. There was
Yes.
always something mind blowing in each of them, even if it was just a scene or a stunt, really.
yeah.
But movies don't make me go wow like movies like RoboCop did.
What would you give it on I normally do a 5-star rating, but if you're under a 1 to 10 rating, that's fine too. What would you want to do? 1 to 10 or 1 to 5?
I'd give it an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 5.
Okay, yeah, and I would have said 4 out of 5, but yeah, no. So that puts me right about an 8 out of 10. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie and we just ruined it for you, by all means, go watch it. But it really is something else to watch it than hear about it. Again, it's an ultra violent movie, and I don't know if that detracts some people from it or not. But the violence is not just there for violence; it is there for symbolic reasons, and it's there to drive home a point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I take from it.
And I think in a lot of movies, violence is there for entertainment and fun.
Yeah.
In this movie, it hits you like a sledgehammer because violence should be nasty and it should be something to be feared and all that.
Absolutely.
So the director had the guts to actually show it.
Yes.
This is what happens if you shoot someone in the hand with a shotgun. Things like that.
Oh yeah, no, and like I said, it's only violent really at that one spot, and that's an obvious thing that the director did. They didn't want to hold back there. They held back in many other places where they could have gotten violent. They didn't there. So I believe that means that violence was necessary in the director's viewpoint. It's how I kind of think when somebody says bad words. Most people don't say bad words just to say bad words. They say bad words because that's the way to voice their frustration at that moment. This is very much the same way. This is a way to get a message across, and this was the way to do it. not because they wanted to, not because they could do it. They did it for the message. So, yeah. With that said, I think we'll wrap this up. Stig, another good talk. We'll find another movie we can talk about as we continue to talk about movies. I hope you guys turn into our next segment, whenever that is. It should be sooner rather than later. But Stig, go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, how they can get in contact with you, all that fun stuff.
Well, I have a tiny YouTube channel.
With ducks.
Yeah, and there's a Marvel thing there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's only 2 minutes of 2 minutes of video, I guess. Just some stuff I cooked up on the fly. So I'm not really a YouTuber, but by any means. But I do tend to be a guest now and again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, quite often on other channels. So I guess you can just find me by watching Merry Mayhem streams or Chris's streams. I've been on General Zod's stuff a lot. Yeah, that's it really.
Oh, there you go. They can find you on Twitter too if they wanted to talk to you. You're a great guy to talk to and a great guy to conversate with. So
yeah, just don't show up at my door.
Oh no, don't, because I've heard that. Yeah, never mind. We won't talk about what happens to people who do that.
Oh, they probably get invited in, to be honest.
Yeah.
And hey, you're hungry? Let's watch a movie, something like that. But
Robocop.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Stig's a great guy. I'm glad to have him on here on this segment. And just to let you guys know, I'm Chris Knight. This is The Real Review 3000. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to hit that bell down below. And we have more content coming your way. That's why you want to hit that bell. So, Stig, again, thank you very much. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on. I had a very good time, like I always do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. All right, guys. Everybody, see you later. Have a good day.
Hey guys, thanks for checking us out. Be sure to subscribe to both channels, and make sure to check out our friends in the Fandom Minutes. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and BitChute, and you can also send us an email at sean@seanstackhousereacts.com and Chris Knight at therealreview3000.com. And be sure to swing by our Teespring store to pick up some awesome merchandise.